Welcome to Your Music Saved Us, where two friends listen to the bad Christian music so you don't have to.
No.
Okay. Where two friends blast ourselves into the past to relive and recontextualize the alternative Christian music we grew up listening to in the 1990s. My name is Jay, and I'm your host for today. With me is a guy who loves the Most High, Clifton. Those aren't lyrics from the album, actually. It's just that feels like it might be with this album.
Yes. Good rhyme.
Thank you.
There are two words in there that rhyme that were at the end of. There was a pause between lines that they created.
Yeah, this is pretty much how the whole album is. Clifton, what are we listening to?
Yeah, Jay, the Christians aren't sending us their best. Some of them are drug dealers and some, okay. We are listening to a band called Freeto Boat. And if you couldn't guess from the name of the band, being silly and weird, they're a ska band. We're doing their first album, Hindsight 2020.
Yep. 1998?
Yes, the end of 98, yeah.
Okay. Was this hard to find?
No, it's everywhere. It's on streaming. It's on Bandcamp. You can even still buy physical albums of it on Bandcamp, both CD and cassette.
Okay, that is surprising.
Yeah. Link in the show notes.
Was this played in youth group?
No. I feel like it could have been.
Yeah.
If the youth people had known about it, but I think this takes a little too much digging. To find, honestly. Yeah. I
feel like maybe if you lived in their area in California,
then it
maybe they were getting it played. But yeah, we were not. However, somewhere they probably were.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, are we getting preached at on this one?
Yeah. I mean, it's mostly self-reflection, but there is some follow-up preaching.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. Before we jump into it, I want to remind everyone to visit patreon.com/YMSU to contribute to get extended episodes. I swear to God, we'll record another Patreon episode really soon.
Oh, I have one planned. Maybe
Clifton has one planned.
Yeah.
We just got to do it. We got, listen, y'all, we're full of great ideas just to follow through sometimes, But anyway, we do appreciate all our patrons. Really, we do. Thank you guys. And thanks for hanging with us. Yeah, let's jump in. Freeto Boat. Clifton, tell us about the band.
All right. This is mostly going to come from the podcast As the Story Grows episode with Mike Wright. His listener are Mike Wright Ironside, because he's in a band now called Ironside, but he was in Freeto Boat. So the band came from San Jose, kind of the San Jose Silicon Valley area of Central California. They formed in 1997, basically as a few youth group kids, wanted to start a band, had the itch. Mike Wright played guitar, and he had a friend, Mike Hope, who played drums. And they just started asking everyone they knew who could play instruments to join the band from like their youth group, maybe other youth groups in town, that kind of stuff. I think they met one of their members at a summer camp kind of thing who happened to live across town, but they never met each other before. And then as the band formed, the general consensus was kind of that they wanted to play ska. As he said, we had heard the Supertones, No Doubt, No Effects, stuff like that, but we really didn't know any genres or anything like that. Mike mentions being a big Billy Power / Blenderhead fan, by the way, around this time, for a tie into our last episode. They didn't really have any Christian venues to play, or even, local other Christian bands to play with. So they started playing shows at their local youth group building, a whole building. Jay, did you have a building for youth group?
No, we had part of a building. We had like the top floor of one of our church buildings, but no. Did you have a separate building? Yeah,
it was actually, when I was in grade school, it was the elementary school building. And then when I went to youth group, they had rejiggered it to be the youth group building. It's kind of interesting to be kind of all on your own over there, away from all the adults. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I don't know what it's like today in an evangelical church, but in the 90s, like youth groups, this is like a big thing. Like they were their own separate culture, separate thing. Yeah. And so there definitely were churches that had their own youth group buildings, like all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like they had their own like PR department, I think. Like they had their own branding. You know?
Mm-hmm.
It was
some of them, yeah.
I mean, I'm not kidding. Like the Wednesday night service for youth group was like its own branding and like had its own name and logo and all that.
In some churches, you have like hundreds of kids showing up on Wednesday night things. Yeah,
we probably had 100 kids.
Yeah, I think we probably did too. Yeah.
All right, back to this though. So, by the way, their band name is based on a Freeto chili pie here in the South. I assume, Jay, you know what a Frito chili pie is.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what a Frito chili pie is, it is basically Fritos, which are a corn chip. Not like tortilla chips, though. You know, they're like a thicker corn chip, a lot saltier, a lot more corn flavor to them, I think. And you top that with like some chili, cheese, maybe some jalapenos or something like that, and that makes a chili pie.
It's pretty good, honestly.
Or, as they call it often at like a carnival or something like that, they'll call it a chili boat or a Frito boat because they'll serve it in like one of those little like containers that look like a boat, you know?
Yeah. Have you ever had it where they just open up the packet of Fritos, like the small packet, and just pour it all in there?
Yeah.
I was kind of thought, yeah. Anyway.
So that's where they got their name from, Frito Boat, a name that they would go on to regret later. Soon they were traveling regionally to play with other bands around the area because, like I said, there weren't really anything else in San Jose area. And they were soon playing a lot of shows with fellow future Betty Rocket band Noggin Toboggan. They put out a demo in 1997, and they had 10 members, Jay, a 10-member ska band. I'm gonna list all the because it's pretty fun. Okay, we got drums, Mike Hope, guitar, Mike Wright, other guitar, Casey Lindstrom, bass, Corey Lindstrom. I assume brothers, maybe cousins. Yeah. I don't know. Vocals, Martin Jimenez, other vocalist, Mike Potosky, sax, Tyler Barnett, other sax, Logan Barnett, trombone, Andy Dolahite. I don't know how to say that. Trumpet, Chuck Atkins. 10 people. 3 of those people would leave before they actually got signed to Betty Rocket. Like, this band changes quickly, by the way. I guess with 10 members, that's not very surprising.
Yeah. They
soon met Philip Von Ride.
I think it's like Retta or something.
Retta. Yeah. Philip Von Retta, who was starting a new record label, and he asked them to open for a show with Anguish Unsaid and Training for Utopia. Just another reminder that Christian shows are always weird.
Yep.
Being Christian is more important than the genres going together. And then in November, so their Bandcamp says November, but I found a Google, one of those Google groups, you know, Jay. I found an announcement for the album that said it was released October 21st of 1998. So this album, Hindsight 2020, released Betty Rocket Records. And so the players for this album, basically 3 of those left. Casey on guitar left, Mike on vocals left, and Chuck on trumpet left. And then Dave Cohen joined on guitar. So we have 8 players on this album.
Oh, only 8. Okay.
Yeah. And they're all guys. Like, you think with that many people, like, how do you have, I don't know.
Yeah.
Over 1999, they toured this album on the West Coast and then a full U.S. tour. Is this our first Betty Rocket album, Jay?
No, because didn't we do wasn't the Creep Downs on Betty Rocket?
That makes sense.
Strangely enough.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
This is our second Betty Rocket, I think.
Cool. All right. But this is one of the first Betty Rocket albums.
Yes. I think it was like they said that on that podcast, it was like maybe the first band signed to the label, or first or second,
like first 2 or 3. Yeah.
So, when did you pick this up back in the day?
So, okay, I remember this is probably one of the only albums I ever mail ordered for. I distinctly remember getting this and the first Big Dog Small Fins album around the same time through mail order.
Okay,
but I found them through Ska Craze. The Betty Rocket Ska Craze album.
Oh,
or
okay.
compilation, which was in my local music store. But I don't know. Creep Downs was in the music store. I don't know why this wasn't. Maybe it was just going to take a while and I wasn't going to wait. I don't know, but I did mail order it. Yeah.
Okay. Were you disappointed when it showed? Sorry. I mean, how did you feel about it when you got it?
Yeah, there's definitely a feeling of like, yay, more ska. Not as good as the other ones, but yay, more ska.
Right.
Not that this album is ska, which we'll talk about as we talk about the music, but yeah. Other than, I don't really remember it. And then when I went to listen to the CD, I guess what we can jump to that is I honestly don't remember the songs at all, except for Soup Kitchen. I remembered the sound. Immediately upon pushing play, I remembered kind of the production and the way it all sounded together, but I didn't remember the album that much. Yeah.
Well, also just knowing you, this means you would have gotten this album your senior year of high school.
Yes.
You're definitely probably listening to, kind of having a transition, listening to other stuff. I can imagine you listened to it a few times, were like, meh, and then that was it.
I'm definitely moving to maybe some darker stuff. Emo is definitely, in my sights at this point. And probably my, my silly obsession with ska was on the wane, definitely.
Yeah. I feel like most people by this point, were kind of, it was fading out in mainstream too, right?
Yeah.
Like you'd had kind of a big ska explosion, like 95, 96, 97, I feel like in there. And then this was kind of, it was moving on to other things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So it sounds like you don't really remember any of the songs before going into this much.
No.
Okay.
And I haven't listened to it at all.
Well, shall we just jump in?
Let's do it.
Song number 1, Brain Surgery.
All right. So, I can't say this song or really any song in this album is mind-blowing. I think we're going to kind of be great on a curve here. What I forgot to mention, in the about the band part is that these guys are like 16 and 17 years old.
Yeah. In fact, this is one of the first albums I've listened to as a show where I think they might have actually been our age.
Yes. I think they're like exactly the same grade we're in, most of them.
Yeah. They might have even been younger. Like this is rare for this show because you and I graduated in 99.
Yes.
So it makes a nice marker for the, end of this kind of period we cover. So yeah, they were young.
Yes. Yes.
And this was their
young.
First band.
Yeah.
Most of them, as far as we know.
Well, I mean, I think some of them had played like in band at school.
Like marching band.
Yes. Or maybe jazz band,
Okay, fair.
I don't know.
All right.
But yeah, this is their first band. Like, from what I understand, several of them learned to play instruments for this band, Okay.
Right.
So that said, we're gonna grade on a little bit of a curve here, I'm an underdog. Like I'm not just an underdog, a cheerer. Like when I was younger and didn't hate people as much as I do now, I would go to shows of like young punk bands and just because I just appreciated their effort and and I wanted to support them. They were, I really do enjoy it. Like I sincerely enjoy these people pouring their hearts into this stuff and trying to do something that's creative and fun.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So for that reason, yes, exactly. Okay. So, based on how old these kids were when they did this, not half bad, honestly. It honestly has a really kind of a good, energetic horn intro with like rocking guitars and driving drums. But the thing that hit me, and you're going to hear it here as I play the intro, is the production. Like I said, I immediately recognized the sound when it started playing, even though I didn't remember any of the songs. And I think the reason it stands out to me is that the horns they're very upfront, but they're soft, if that makes any sense. Like there's no sharpness to them. Maybe they're overly compressed. A lot of the album, honestly, is overly compressed, so that it kind of doesn't have any hit. Like it's there, but it's just a solid mass. It's not doing anything.
I agree with you, and that was actually one of my. I don't think I'd ever heard this, or if I had just like once,
Yeah.
way back in the day that I did not remember. And that was one of my first thoughts too. I was like, whoa, this mix is weird.
Yeah.
And like some of the songs, I feel like the horns are too loud. I felt like a few other songs, though, I was like, oh, they're buried more in there. Like it's not the same throughout the album. Yeah, there's some parts on songs we'll get to, not this one, but some others that it felt kind of like, everything's compressed and a little bit mushy.
Mm-hmm.
I also felt like on this one, I was like, are those horns like in tune? I don't know. They don't even, a couple parts I'm like, did they just mess up? I'm not sure.
Wait, do horns go out of tune?
Yeah, you could totally
Okay.
play it like slightly out of tune. So like, I'm wondering if like, I don't know. I just, same. The production, clearly whoever recorded this had never recorded a ska band.
Right.
Which is fair. It's probably not normal.
It's not horrible. Like the production isn't horrible. If this was a pop punk band, it'd be fine.
Yeah. But
except for one song.
But this could be better. I mean, I know I say that on almost every album, better production, but this one needs some help.
Yeah. All right, let's play it. That's the intro. The horns are upbeat, which I think is maybe the most upbeat thing that happens on the entire album. And I don't mean upbeat in a sense of like it's happy. I mean upbeat as in it's truly hitting the upbeats, like what the definition of ska is.
There are a few places where the guitar does play upbeats. I noticed in a
I'm
few
gonna
of the
argue
songs,
with you on that,
but
okay.
like not a lot. It is weird when you, and like this song, I don't think there's any for the guitar, so it's like kind of like rock with horns, except like not.
Fact,
I don't know.
I did find an interview with them at one point where it's kind of towards the end of this phase of them where they actually have the horns and whatnot, where they kind of describe themselves more as punk with horns than a ska band.
Okay.
And I think that's more fair, honestly.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're going to go into a verse here. You're going to hear, like, it actually does have a pretty good walking bass line, another fundamental of ska. So we've had a little bit of horn upbeat. We're going to have a walking bass line. So, we're definitely hinting towards this being ska, but like we're going to quickly get away from that.
Waiting for a very long time. Sometimes directions have no rhythm or rhyme. She's signaling me, am I getting the clue? She looking past me right at you. What's the matter, can she make up her mind? When we're together, don't we have a good time? Hey girl, you say what's going on here? Why dating you my greatest joy and my greatest fear? Our relationship I do and you can say what's going on here.
Alright, so that was verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and they kind of have a tendency on all the songs to like just shove them all right together so that they can have a horn break afterwards. I think the vocals are weird. They're sound like a kid, They're not the best vocals, but if we're grading on a curve, I think they're fine. I think he has a good rhythm, honestly, and he's not great at being on pitch, but I'm a firm believer in forgiving that.
The only thing is to me, they try to sound like No Effects, like Fat Mike, or I also think Dogwood kind of sounds like those vocals too. So I agree. They're fine. I don't honestly love it with ska, but that's not really where I'm going to like plant my flag and have my battle on this album. It's not the vocals.
We'll get some supertones like vocals at some point too.
Yeah.
So during the verse, there was no guitar at all. And then in the chorus, we get the, like any good third wave ska band, we get full horns We have driving punk rock guitar, and there's even some backing vocals in there that are kind of nice. They work, yeah. That said, I think the chorus overall is a little underwhelming. Honestly, the verse is more interesting than the chorus is vocally, I think. They do that again, and then there's a bridge, which I do think is actually kind of fun. So we're going to listen to that. This is where we almost get a little bit of ska in our guitars. The song actually just starts over there again, and then they go into the chorus, and then it ends. The guitar there was just kind of like, it was almost doing a ska thing, but it was not on the upbeats. It was just like, dut, dut, on the downbeats.
Yeah.
The horns, though, were on the upbeats, which did work.
Musically, I think this is one of the better songs
on
the album.
Yeah. It's energetic, it's fun, it has a good hook for the horns.
Yeah, it kind of goes downhill from here for a while.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to skip most of the first half of the album because it's honestly pretty bad. I think, personally, the second half of the album, like, I don't know why they arranged the song this way. I think the second half of the album is far superior.
Yeah. Well, shall we talk about the lyrics?
Let's do.
I feel like we're going to spend some time on these, not because they're so great. I want to be clear.
Why don't you go ahead and read the lyrics, and then we'll talk about why we're going to spend so much time on lyrics.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay, I'll keep my comments till the end. Waiting for her for a very long time. Sometimes her actions have no rhythm or rhyme. Is she signaling me? Am I getting the clue? Is she looking past me right at you? What's the matter? Can't she make up her mind? When we're together, don't we have a good time? Here's the chorus. It's, hey girl, can you say what's going on here? Why is dating you my greatest joy, my greatest fear? Our relationship, I do adhere. Can you say what's going on here? We're perfect for each other, and why can't she see? It must have been some kind of brain surgery. Her parents love me, her brother's my best friend. Will this torture never end? I go to school with her every day. When I look at her, I want to say. And then it goes back into the chorus. And the final part is, sometimes I think we're making ground. Then we about face and turn around. She said we were doing fine. Then she wasn't happy and I lost my mind.
All right.
Not every fucking line has to rhyme, by the way, but they do. Yeah.
So the songs I've selected here are almost all because of their lyrics, and this one is because of how incel-y it is. But I think the overall, and as you heard there, the lyrics are not great.
Oh God, they're bad.
But I think overall, I do appreciate the topics they've brought up here. And so we're going to spend some time on those topics. I mean, yes, we're going to talk about the lyrics and what they are, but we're going to spend more time talking about the topics that the lyrics bring up, I think.
Okay.
And I'm going to be real honest here. When I was around the age that these guys were, you know, like we said, I think we're around the same age as these guys, you know, so it's around the same time that these guys were that age. I wrote constantly. I filled up spiral after spiral of prose and bad poetry and shit, which I hope have all been destroyed at this point.
I was about to ask, do you still have these, Clifton? Talk about it.
I hope they're all destroyed
Patreon
at this
episode.
point.
Oh my gosh.
Jesus Christ, you can't pay me enough to... Yes, $1 million.
All right, y'all. Listen, we have to find these and do a special episode. Anyway.
But half of it, at least, is shit like this, you know? And honestly, it makes me feel not so alone.
Okay, interesting. You're like, oh, other people were doing this shit.
Other people were as creepy as I was. Do you ever remember feeling like this, Jay?
Yeah, I remember probably feeling this way. I was not as prone to writing poems or lyrics or anything, so did not do that.
Yeah.
But the feelings, I think, sure. Because I think, and you may be getting into this, I don't know, but this is like, this relationship stuff, I feel like is extra confusing when you're growing up in like purity culture and Christianity and everything, because like everything is off limits.
Yeah.
Even though you're having like, and I'm not even talking about sex or anything. I'm just saying like, even though you're having like a natural attraction and urges and shit, but because everything's off limits, it's like extra confusing. And half the time you're feeling sinful about normal feelings. And it's just a lot.
And then it goes in weird directions because of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I think purity culture and just like what comes with purity culture is that kind of constant discussion of sex and sexual purity and relationships and relationship purity and all that kind of stuff, you know, that especially for someone like me who didn't start dating until like kind of the end of high school, combined with just the hormonal torture of being a teenager, made falling in love and finding quote unquote the one kind of a constant obsession.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad you agree with
Definitely.
that. And which kind of leads to constantly wondering, like if you like personally, I had a crush on a girl, you know, that lasted a while, and it kind of made constantly wondering if the girl you have a crush on, you know, is sending you signals that she's interested. You're constantly interpreting every little thing as being about the potential relationship instead of just living.
Right.
You know? Not mentioned in this song, but for me, constantly wondering if I was worthy or good enough or in the right place to actually pursue her, if God wanted me not to do that, which also in some ways could have been like an excuse to not go out on a limb and take the risk of, you know, attempting a relationship. And as he says, you know, to quote, I go to school with her every day. Will this torture never end? And that's how it felt at the time, honestly.
Yeah. It's, I'm kind of trying to put myself back in those shoes in those days. It's also like, I have to be careful saying this because I don't want to be taken the wrong way, but it's almost emasculating in a weird way, like this Christian culture, because, and I don't mean to be like a macho meathead, but like that's not what I'm meaning, but just also because I think you were so focused on being godly, which essentially meant like, I don't know what the fuck it was supposed to mean, but it was, you know, like you didn't really know actually how to like date or just be fucking normal. And so I feel like it was always trying to seem godly with stuff. And so it was this weird, like, instead of just being, I guess what I'm trying to get at is instead of being confident about yourself, I know for me at least, a lot of it was like, I was not confident around girls at all because I was so trying to be godly or the right way, which came across, I don't know how it came across, but I feel like I could have been a lot more confident, but I was too busy trying to do what God wanted me to do, which was, I don't know what.
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah, because it wasn't clear, especially like you said, because everything was off limits, right?
Yep, exactly.
And we constantly hear that, oh, the man has to be the leader of the relationship and like all this kind of stuff, you know, but that's off limits, right? So what are you supposed to be?
Yeah.
So like it that makes sense in a relationship, but how does it make sense in like,
I just want to ask this girl out on a date.
Yeah, you know?
Yeah. Like, I know. And also you would question all that because you're like, well, is she the right one? Yeah. Is she the one? You haven't even like asked her out yet and you're already wondering if she's the one, right? All this stuff. And it just like, it made those years that were tough anyway, I feel like so much harder.
Yeah.
So much harder than it needed to be.
Yes. Yeah. And then on top of all that, where this song goes a little bit further than all that is, if she's not interested in me, well, can't she see what God has made between us? You know, there must be some kind of brain damage here that is keeping her from seeing, you know. Oof.
Yeah. Yeah. And you hear those stories now about people talking about this time in their life and they're like, well, I didn't really like him, but God just showed me he was the one. And then we got together and da 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 da. It's like, oh, man.
That is horrifying.
And
that's why I get a lot of divorces at 20 years old. And
that's why we get all these marriages. People getting married super, super young because of this culture. And when we talk to Dan from Blaster the Rocket Man, like he kind of brought that up. And I think you saw this a lot in Christian music culture at the time. So many people in bands and stuff are getting married super young and having kids super young and stuff because it's like that was the culture.
Right. I just thought of another part of this. Because there's so much that's off limits, because they're all kind of like casual dating is frowned upon.
Mm-hmm.
And because like you're a kid and you want to do something, like having a crush on someone is almost like it's like the only exciting thing that ever happens to you, because it's like, well, then something in my life might differ than it was yesterday.
And also like somehow having a crush was still allowed. I'm a little bit shocked that they didn't make that off limits too. But I feel like that was still okay as long as like you didn't really do anything about it or did something about it in the right way. But you're right, because you can't like date casually and actually build a little fucking confidence in yourself and in like ways to be around people of the opposite sex. I mean, God forbid, they definitely weren't letting you with the same sex, but like, you know, being around people you're attracted to, then like
figuring out who you're attracted to, which is a big part of casual dating.
Yes. And so then you're like, again, not confident coming into it. And it just, it's
and
a
I think
mess.
one of the big, how do I phrase this? One of the big torpedoes to that confidence is, I think because you don't have that casual dating experience, you don't know what it means to like actually have a true connection with somebody. It kind of kill your confidence too, because you're like, oh, what do I talk about? Like, what do I like this is like, what are we like? I don't know what to talk about because like I don't know what it is like to have a relationship with someone who like shares interests with me or something like that. Like, does that make sense?
Well, and your only shared interest should be Jesus, Clifton.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's like, it's like you can't enjoy being with someone just because you enjoy being with them. It's like, it has to be about God all the time.
Yeah. I think we're going to talk about something like that in a couple songs.
Oh, interesting.
All right. Shall we move on?
Yeah. I have a lot to say about this next song. So.
Yeah, me too. All right, this is track 5. We have gracefully skipped tracks 2 through 4 for you.
I mean, and listen, y'all, I kind of wanted to talk about Sloppy Thoughts, which the title is Sloppy Thoughts, and it is about lust.
Yes.
So I'll just stop there.
It takes a while. Like, you can tell that it's about sloppy thoughts from the title, but the rest of it is obscure. Like, I don't know. It is hard to figure out those lyrics because he's going so far out of the way to not say anything. Yeah.
So we're not going to make you listen to it.
Yeah.
You should be glad.
Although Sloppy Thoughts is the other song from this album that was also on the Betty Rocket Ska Craze compilation. As was this. So this song opened the Ska Craze compilation, and Sloppy Thoughts was the second song. But I didn't remember Sloppy Thoughts. I remember this song from when I was a kid. Maybe just because that was really catchy, kind of opening horn hook.
Right, yeah.
Which kind of I don't know. The song's only 2 minutes long, so there's not a lot to say about it because it really only has like one catchy thing it does, and it does it a few times, and it's over.
Yeah.
So I guess let's listen to the intro here.
Why do we ask for more? Some of us are filthy rich, while others are really poor. America's the richest country, someone's got a mop before. When they ask us for donations, we make apologies and we shut the door. I don't want to give no more, I never see what it's for. I know the Bible says to give, that is one our rule to live.
Alright, that's most of the song. Once again, we did intro, verse, and chorus there. and then we go into a little musical interlude. Like I said, that's a short song. Now you've heard most of it. There's kind of a pseudo ska upbeat on the guitars there, but it's not really, because it's more just like a da 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 da. Like, it barely hits any upbeats. It's mostly just strumming. Once again, though, I think the vocals do have kind of a good rhythm to them.
Yeah.
That's about that, and the hook for the horns is maybe the best part of the song.
Yeah, and the horn part is simple, but it's not bad.
Yeah. There's a third verse that kind of comes off as a bridge, I think, because the vocals are just done a little bit different. And at the end, you're going to hear that it goes back into the chorus, and then there's a second chorus kind of thing with a different vocal. So they actually put a little effort into this.
When the game makes trumpets call, they see your reward in full. Keep your left hand in the dark, and you'll get a heavenly mark. If you think that giving ain't painless, the one I give the most was totally flameless. He paid for you the ultimate price, and in exchange you can be a little more generous. I don't want to give no more, I never see what it's for. I know the Bible says to give, that is one I will do live. Who do I make this check out to? Do you want me to force them to? For my works now, that's the key. And you make sure they know they're free.
I think what he's trying to do there in the verse is more like a supertones kind of spitting, rappy kind of thing, but it doesn't work very well.
No, it does not. There's a later vocal attempt we're going to get to on this album, on the last song you picked, that's extremely bad. This is maybe second worst.
It's true. You want to read did you read them last time? I'll read them this time, I guess.
Okay.
All right. You give us what we need. Why do we ask for more? Some of us are filthy rich, while others are really poor. America is the richest country, but someone's got to mop the floor. When they ask for donations, we make apologies and we shut the door. I don't want to give no more. I never see what it's for. I know the Bible says to give. That is one hard rule to live. Buy their t-shirts, their CDs, pay the concert ticket fees. On the way, pass by some homeless, walk right by when they say please. While they sit there on the street, your change does a little tease. Or were those your car keys? Just remember, Jesus sees. Third verse. When you give, make no trumpets call, and you'll receive your reward in full. Keep your left hand in the dark, and you'll get a heavenly mark. If you think giving ain't painless, the one who gave the most is totally blameless. He paid for you the ultimate price, and in exchange, you can be a little more generous. I don't know how that rhymes, but okay. Who do I make this check out to? This is kind of where it mirrors the chorus again. Who do I make this check out to? Do you want me to pour some stew? Perform good works, now that's the key. But we need to make sure they know they're free.
Okay. Can I give you my thoughts on this?
Please.
I can see where they had some good intentions with these lyrics.
Yes.
But I also think they reveal a lot about Christian culture and belief at the time. I'm just going to go through it. So it's okay that some are rich and some are poor. That's never questioned, by the way. Like, that's just okay. And the full belief in the supremacy of America, right? America's the richest country, he says. And then also in this, Christianity is about obedience. Jesus says to do this, and you must, even though you don't want to, like, give the money. And then in this, Jesus is like some spiritual Santa Claus. He sees you when you're naughty and you don't give to homeless folks.
Right.
And then instead of staying focused on giving to those in need, we change it up towards the end and bring it all back to eternal salvation. Forget people in need. We have more pressing issues.
Yeah.
And he performed good work, sure, but ultimately make fewer people know they're free. You know, like, yeah.
Also make it about salvation. Yeah.
It just, and that was that's so typical of that time, right? Like, we're talking about this, but let's make sure we bring up the salvation part in it.
Yes. No, this made me feel like that age again, once again, but like in this realm, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and because it is such a mirror of the society. He does make some good points in here in the third verse, which you kind of skipped in your summary. He does say what Jesus says, like, keep your left hand in the dark. Jesus is saying, when you give to the poor, don't make a big deal out of it. Just do it and be quiet about it and move on.
Yeah.
don't make it about you. But yeah, it is. Okay. I want to set up for the rest of the songs we're going to be talking about what I kind of think are the 4 fundamental innovations of Christianity.
Oh, okay.
Number 1, original sin. In the Jewish religion, there's no concept of original sin. That is a reinterpretation of the Genesis story by Christians to insert original sin because they needed, number 2, personal salvation, which is what Jesus came to do.
Okay.
Number 3, evangelism. The reason that Christianity is so big today is because of evangelism. There's almost no other religion in the world that does evangelism.
Wait, what was number 2?
Personal salvation.
Okay, so sorry. So original sin, personal salvation, evangelism.
Number 4 is charity, which is what we're going to be talking about now. Historically, charity is the Christian expression of love. And the unique aspects of Christian love, I think, can be summarized between the Golden Rule and the parable of the Good Samaritan. So, the Golden Rule it's not like groundbreaking, but historically, this thought has always been framed in the negative. So, like, do not do to others what you do not want them to do to you, which is a good thought. But
Okay.
Jesus frames it in the positive. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think there's wisdom in both of these. I mean, I think Christians can learn from both of them, honestly. Because in the negative framing, you get kind of like, don't mistreat people. Don't mistrust people. Don't hurt people. Don't oppress people. All that kind of stuff because you don't want that kind of stuff done to you. Which is not true of the positive statement. Like, the positive statement does not imply any of that. But the negative statement also doesn't apply what the positive statement applies. So in the positive framing, it kind of requires more direct action, right? You're not just not doing to others. You have to do to or for others what you would want. It's like if you would want to be comforted in a time of hurt, you should do that for others. If you would want help in time of hardship, you should do that for others. And part of the work of the positive framing here is, maybe the beginning of the work is being honest with yourself about your own needs, right? Like, oh, I don't need help, so I'm not going to help other people, is a self-serving lie, right?
Okay. Right.
We all need help. Nobody's an island kind of thing, right? But like, literally, you've made it nowhere in your life because of you, right? Like, not on your own. There's always been other things that have gotten you there. So that's the golden rule. Now, the other side of this, I think, is kind of the Good Samaritan thing. Helping the poor was always an important aspect of Jewish belief, but it was contained within the people they considered their own. My fellow Israelites, my fellow countrymen, kind of thing.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
That's why when the rich young ruler comes to Jesus and says, hey, what do I need to do? Jesus tells him, what are the commandments? And he sums them up with love God, love your neighbor. And Jesus says, good, you got it, man. And then he asks, who is my neighbor? Because historically, your neighbor has been the people next to you, the people in your family, your fellow countrymen, right? It's been a very confined group. And so Jesus tells the story of the Good Samaritan and does something crazy and expands your neighbor to being everybody in the world.
Right, like any person, yeah.
Right, yeah. But what's interesting about this is that in the wider Greco-Roman world of the time, helping the poor wasn't something people did. Like, that is a unique innovation of Christianity. Like Christian hospitals, all those things that the Catholic Church did for a long time, those are truly unique innovations of Christianity.
That's okay. That's good.
Yeah. It's maybe like the one good thing that Christianity ever did. And what Jesus's best work right there. And so Jesus focused his time, his healing, his efforts on the poor and the outcasts of society. He healed the sick, he fed the hungry, he loved the outcast, he spoke against the hoarding of wealth and resources, as also did many Old Testament prophets. He told those around him to do the same, and that every person in the world is as much their responsibility as their neighbor. This is fundamental to the teaching of Jesus. He wasn't shy about it. Matthew 19:21. This is the end of the rich young ruler, Good Samaritan arc. Jesus said to him, "If you wish to be perfect, go, sell your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasures in heaven. Then come follow me." This is not a, oh, by the way thing, right? This is fundamental to who Jesus was. It is fundamental to what he told his followers to do. And here we have a song that's grappling with it like, it's not an easy rule to live, but I guess sometimes I can do it.
Yep.
This is how seriously Christians take, and how seriously we as Christians took Jesus' actual teachings.
Yep.
So, yeah, you're right, though. Like, it really took me back to that time. You know, I don't know how much, like, work you ever did with, like, food, like soup kitchens or stuff like that, you know, but all the ones in Wichita Falls were part of churches or run by churches. My church didn't fucking do it. Because fuck you. But to get that food, you know what you had to do first, Jay?
Probably listen to a sermon.
Listen to a sermon.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Jesus didn't say, "Hey, I'll feed you, but you got to listen to me and like take me up on my proposition first." You know?
Yeah.
But people have truly lost their way and said, "You know what? No, this is more important. So the only way that you're allowed to come here is if you'll sit through this sermon. The only way you're going to get food is if you sit through this sermon. The only way we're going to help you off the streets if you sit through this sermon." Which, by the way, is why public, like federal and state help to people is so much better than private charity, because private charity picks and chooses.
Yeah.
Whereas public helps everybody.
Yeah.
All you have to do is hit whatever the economic numbers are, right? Yeah, it's been used badly in the past and it has been racist, but if done correctly, it doesn't pick and choose. If charity is done correctly, it always picks and chooses.
Yeah.
This is why people on the left think that public-run welfare systems are better than private charities.
Yeah. And I think you make a point with the preaching, like, because it does it in this song too, right? Of like focusing on people's eternal salvation more than their immediate needs.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, as you point out, which Jesus say, love God and then love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't say like make people listen to sermons or do like any of this stuff. It's not about that. It's just about like, hey, be kind, do things that people need. Like, yeah.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could make the argument, well, I would want them to tell me about Jesus. We'll come to that later, in a later song.
Yeah. And I think that's what people would say, right? Like, if I didn't know Jesus, but it's like, I don't think that's true. Yeah. But why can't you just like, give them food because they're hungry?
Yeah. You know what? If Jesus is truly shining through you, you wouldn't have to bring it up. It wouldn't have to be you forcing it on them.
To, I guess, defend these guys slightly, I feel like I might have written the same song back then. Like, that was just so reflective of the culture. And again, it's funny because they're meaning well in this song.
This is a positive song about, hey, why don't we actually try to help people?
Right. But in some weird ways, it actually shows all the problems.
The depravity of
Yeah. It's pretty interesting in that.
Yeah.
These lyrics throughout this album, again, they're not good. And they're way too rhymey and way too like first take ever at writing songs. Type thing.
They're a slave to the rhyme. And there's no second passes, I don't think.
I told Clifton it feels like some like Christian bookstore Muppet or something that you could like if they had a programmable one, like write me a song about this, and it just like spits out these lyrics. This is what it feels like. But they do reveal a ton about culture at the time.
Which is what I've actually enjoyed about this album. While the music isn't great and the lyrics aren't great, it has made me feel, because of the subject they're bringing up, has made me feel 16 and 17 years old again. Not like physically, but like it puts me in that mindset. I was like, oh shit. It makes me remember being there.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Well, want to go on?
Let's do it.
Song number 6, Love You For You.
All right. This one.
Is this like an LGBTQ affirming song, Clifton? Love
Probably
You For You?
so. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You love someone for being who they are, not asking anything more of them than that.
Right.
So this song kind of opens with a clean guitar, doing almost like this pretty, like, and I mean pretty, arpeggiated thing. And then once we get into that kind of pseudo upbeat guitar thing again. Straight into the verse and chorus, all kind of crammed together once again, like they have a tendency to do.
I can't seem to sleep, so filled with the joy it brings. Lately I've been down in everything, but tonight I feel I have to sing. Yeah, yeah. Oh Lord, I love you for you, and I'm glad you're in me too. Oh, with my praise I prove that I truly love you, for you.
This is probably the song you're talking about that's way too compressed.
Yeah, there's a few parts throughout, but yes, you just kind of, everything gets a little muddy.
Yeah, the vocals almost seem buried even though they're not. The horns seem buried even though they're not. Everything, is just too squished together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's another verse after that, and then we actually get this kind of like pretty, probably meant to be worshipful, instrumental section. I'm going to play, it's kind of an extended section here, but I do want to say something about it when we get to it.
Sometimes it's hard for me to think, but the pain can't take over me. My mistakes that I was blind to see, but your love will now set me free. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh Lord, I love you for you, and I'm glad you're in me too. Oh, with my praise I prove that I truly love you, for you.
So it's interesting. We get this like really pretty kind of instrumental solo there. I guess that's an alto sax. That's the only other instrument listed in the someone who playing anything. And I don't know. I think it is kind of beautiful in its own way. I think the production's horrible, but I think, with better production, I think it could really kind of come off as this nice, pretty song that it's kind of punk rock pretty, but it's still pretty.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is almost like a praise song, basically,
Exactly.
especially with the chorus. Yeah, for sure.
There's another verse here. It kind of starts getting annoying at this point. The only reason I'm going to play it is because I do like the guitar on this.
Late night, I can't seem to sleep, so filled with the joy it brings. Lately I've been down in everything, but tonight I feel I have to sing. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh Lord, I love you for you, and I'm glad you're in me too. Oh, with my praise I prove that I truly love you, for you.
That's it. Yeah, kind of a worship song. Interesting. I'm surprised we didn't hear more. Well, I mean, obviously, Insiders did a whole album of this.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm surprised we didn't hear more of this kind of stuff just on normal albums. I think Five Iron Frenzy did one or two songs you could almost call as kind of worship praise songs.
Shall I read the lyrics?
Go for it.
Late at night, I can't seem to sleep, so filled with the joy you bring. Lately, I've been down in everything, but tonight I feel I have to sing. Oh Lord, I love you for you, and I'm glad you're in me too. Oh, with my praise I prove that I truly love you for you. Sometimes it's hard for me to think, for the pain can come over me. My mistakes that I was blind to see, but your love will now set me free.
So even though it's a praise song, it's kind of about... The second verse is easier for me to make out because it almost seems like the pain of sinning is overcoming this person. And so, like, yeah, I sin, I make mistakes, and I can't see them, but luckily you're going to save me.
Right.
The first verse is a little bit weirder. It almost, okay, late at night, I can't seem to sleep, so filled with the joy you bring. Lately, I've been down in everything, but tonight I feel I have to sing.
Yeah, those don't fit together.
Yeah.
By the way, have you ever had a scenario where you can't sleep at night, Clifton, because you're so filled with the joy of the Lord?
No, but I'm not bipolar. So
I think that's where this song is. Okay.
Maybe, I don't know.
Right.
But what I do think it is just interpreting feelings.
Okay.
There's a lot of feeling interpretation going on here of, obviously, we're led a lot to shame, as it's an overwhelming feeling, I think, of especially growing up in the church like we did. And then the other one is just like, well, I don't feel shame right now, so I feel pretty great.
Yeah. That must be the joy of the Lord, the not shame part.
Yeah. And then the chorus is, oh Lord, I love you for you. I don't know why, but it is. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like, I have a big, long thing I'm going to go into, but if you have thoughts, I want you to get them out first.
No, just again, I felt like this was some like AI machine writing bad Christian songs. Like I'm sorry, I'm going to read the chorus for everybody one more time. Literally, this is the chorus. Oh Lord, I love you for you, and I'm glad you're in me too. Oh, with my praise I prove that I truly love you for you. Good God. Yeah. I mean, what does he mean, I love you for you? Yeah.
That's what I want to explore.
All right, let's do it.
So, we probably all have many people in our lives, that for nothing more than who they are, we love them. Because of just the kindness they have as a person, or their innate curiosity, or resilience, or humility, or whatever unique qualities they might have as a person, that even when those things are missing from them, we still see it in them. We love them for who they are.
Right.
And we love these things about them because, like, we've spent time with them, interacted with them, gotten to know them. And while I was listening to this song, especially the first time, I remember I was driving and I was getting close to my house and I was just like, why? Like, what do you mean you love God for who God is? Who is it that you love for being themselves in God? In a sense, God is a phantom. Like, what joy is God bringing you? Because it's not mentioned in the song. And kind of, where I'm coming from with this, my conception of God has changed a lot from the understanding of God that I had growing up in the church. Mostly because I think I read the Bible and took it seriously. This morning I was listening to something I kind of want to insert here because it kind of shed a light on something that this question I was having. This morning I was listening to one of the earlier episodes of the podcast Data Over Dogma, and they had a guest on who made a really interesting point. Most Christians see the Bible as kind of a set, strictly defined dogma that is their job to agree with. And they've always been told that God is love, that God is beautiful, God is great. So they go to the Bible and they find that. They ignore all the evidence to the contrary. Which is how you get songs like this, I think. There's nothing in this song that says anything at all about God other than I love you for you, with no hint of what that might mean, what it is they find lovable in God. And I remember being like that. You probably remember being like that, Jay.
Yeah.
But my understanding of God has changed a lot since then. When I was 20 to 21 to 22, right in that area, I forget exactly. That area is very fuzzy for me timeline-wise. I decided to sit down and read the Bible cover to cover and what I try to do is not bring any preconceptions to my reading of the Bible. So I tried to just form a new understanding of the Bible. Not a new understanding, but I tried to just take it at its word.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of trying to fit the preconceived ideas that I had been raised with on top of it. And in the last song, we talked about what I think is, like I said, probably the only positive aspect of Jesus' teachings, and maybe the Bible in general, of charity. And we talked about how rare it is to actually see anyone actually take Jesus seriously here about this. But that isn't what most of the Bible is about. Not even in the New Testament, weirdly. The parts of the Bible that are literally just about God, not like talking about God or saying who God is, but just like God interacting with people. In my view, we learn exactly two things about God in those times. Number one, God demands obedience and loyalty. Number two, God requires worship. In his actual interactions with people, that's what we see from God.
Okay.
And if you aren't keeping up your end of the bargain, then God's, he's a fucking terror, honestly. Every solution he has to everything is violence and pain. I mean that from the Old Testament to the end of the New Testament, Even in the New Testament, Paul spends more time talking about kind of the horrors of sinning than anything Jesus ever talked about, probably because, in a sense, Paul was creating his own religion that had nothing to do with Jesus. And then you kind of out of nowhere comes the epistles of John. They're like, hey, if you don't know God's love, after all this fear-mongering, then you don't know God. And I remember I was like, man, I must not know God because I was just reading all this stuff about being afraid of him,
Yeah.
And then comes Revelation that is nothing but God's vengeance, revenge on those who don't obey and worship him. But if someone tells you that God is beautiful and God is love, then you go to the Bible and you read about the parts where he created the world, and we look at the world and it is beautiful, so God must be beautiful. But that's begging the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what is it? Like, we're going to talk about this again, and this next song is going to build on this song, honestly, in this department, but like, what is it? What are you, other than going to look for the pretty parts of God in the Bible, what are you... We have original... Let's go back again to my four unique components of Christianity. Original sin, personal salvation, evangelism, and charity. I've already talked about charity. A lot of what I think is talked about in this song, about the only point that it ever kind of makes is like, but you will now set me free.
Mm-hmm.
Set you free from what? Sin. So now now we're back to original sin and personal salvation. But this is kind of... I hate to say this, but it's just like I created a cure for the thing I created.
Yeah, you set me free from you.
Yeah.
Right.
Grifters often create the cures for the ills they tell you that you have.
Yeah. I was thinking of your four elements. If you get rid of original sin, then you don't need the salvation.
And you don't need the evangelism.
Yeah, then all you really still have is charity, which I think we would both agree is not a bad thing.
Nope.
So, yeah, maybe we could just have that. And
yep.
Right.
I would be happy with that.
Yeah, it's original sin is really... I fucking hate it. I think it is so bad on so many levels.
Mm-hmm.
Like, makes you feel bad about yourself. You can't trust other people because you assume that they're always wanting the worst. Like, it's just...
Right. Remember going back to do not do to others what you don't want them to do to you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I started listening to... Have you listened to the podcast I Hate James Dobson?
Yeah,
okay.
A little bit.
So I started listening to it this past week, and it's great. But one of the things they talk about is that James Dobson just assumes that everyone is fucking full of sin and they're out to destroy everyone who isn't themselves and they're only out for themselves. I'm like, well, now you just mistrust people.
Yeah, and expanding on that slightly, because, James Dobson was always like Christian parenting expert, wrote the book like Strong-Willed Child and all this stuff. I've been listening to, but reading the book Wild Faith by Talia Lavin.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. I recommend it. It's a lot, but she's a journalist, not a academic, so it's easy to read, but she's just covers basically all the crazy shit we grew up with and how it's manifested today. But one chapter is on Christian parenting and how like we talked about the Strong-Willed podcast as well. Well, it's called Strong-Willed now. Before they were doing the DC Talk one and stuff, it was Prophetic Imagination Station. But they they have been talking about, they call it religious authoritarian parenting, and what we probably all grew up in a sense, and getting spanked and all the other stuff with it. But where I'm going with this, getting back to original sin, is like, if you believe in this, then yes, of course you believe your 9-month-old is purposely being rebellious and sinful and bad. It leads you to really fucked up conclusions, and it leads people to like beating their kids and raising kids in a really fucked up way, because you just assume that what is actually normal childhood development stuff is some innately sinful, evil little child that needs to be corrected and made obedient till you get it out of them. Like, it's really, really bad.
Yeah, I mean, one of the... We probably would not have original sin as a mainline doctrine of Christianity today if it wasn't for St. Augustine. St. Augustine. Right. And he talks about... He spends time writing, I think it was in his City of God, he spends time writing about how he asked forgiveness because, like, when he was a baby, he cried, because he was so sinful that he needed everything to be about him. That's his interpretation of that. I feel like so much of Christian theology is built on the neuroses of a few fucked up people through history.
Yeah.
Paul, being maybe the first of them, and then Augustine was no help, and then we have all of our sufferers after that, but it's just, it's. So, what is it like? How do you get to know God when God's not around to interact with? And how do you love that God for being them when you don't know them? You don't really know them. You've never. What experience do you have with them that you can't just rack up to your imagination?
Well, but you're told it's not your imagination, Clint.
Yes.
And you're told if you pray enough, God will do this. So then you look for every little weird sign, just like you're looking for every weird sign that the girl might like you or not. With my daughter's son, but any little weird thing, you're like suddenly like, oh, that must be God telling me this.
Yeah, a lot of superstitious thinking going on. Speaking of, you want to get to the next song?
Oh, yeah. NTF, song number 9. Not NFT. That's something
not
else.
NFT. I assume it means not the faith. I don't know. There's nowhere in the song that it actually suggests what the name of the song is based on.
Clifton, question. Does this song have a chorus? Or actually a vocal chorus? Seems like the chorus is just like instrumental.
Yeah, like my notes for the song are not like all my other notes where I usually break things down. They're just like segments of the song I want to talk about because I couldn't really break other than like being like, it's just I think we go verse, double verse, verse.
There's like a little instrumental part in between that I think is kind of works as the chorus, but no vocals on that.
Right. Speaking of the last song being like kind of like a worship song, this song was almost like a Sunday school song.
Yeah, this is like kind of preachy, teachy type pedantic song.
Yeah. So let's listen to this be a Sunday school song. I feel like this belongs on Salty. just kind of, it seems playful, kind of in the way as like a children's Sunday school song he does. I do feel like it belongs on like Salty the Songbook. Okay. It's almost playful and like They Might Be Giants. I mean, it's not like as good as a They Might Be Giants song. But you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying though? Like
I know kind of where you're going, yeah.
Kind of that silliness to it kind of thing, you know? Yeah. That's the song, I guess. Like, it just does that over and over again. There is an interesting instrumental bridge here that is a little bit different than the other ones that I'm going to play. And then it gets kind of crazy. I guess I'm just going to play this. It's going to be 1.5 minutes, but like, I don't know. Let's listen to it. If anybody else saw the electricity! Listen to the sermon, cause the answer's in the words. Most of it applies to you and you'd wish you'd heard. You may think it's crazy or at least way out of sight, but it proves to you beyond a doubt that Jesus is the light! I like the folly partiness of that last part of the song. And I have a feeling that if you're a Christian kid, like, this would be a pretty fun thing to like hear at your youth group building.
Okay, right.
You know, this would be fun to rock out to live. That's all. It's not a great song, honestly. We're here for the lyrics. I guess I'm reading them this time. Man, I got the two longest songs.
I'm sorry, you got the long ones, Clifton. I'm sorry, yeah.
Right. Have you ever felt as if it's impossible to see the one and only God above who died to set you free? The one who shed his blood upon the cross that sacred day, whose hands were pierced and side was stabbed to wash your sins away. Have you ever gone to bed and prayed before you sleep? And as your left brain talks to God, your right brain counts the sheep. And as you drift away from prayer, both sides begin to dream about jump roping ostriches who overeat ice cream. Talk to Jesus, say it out, he wants to hear your voice. The Trinity, as in the book, is worthy of your choice. Pray aloud with a joyful noise, that way your thoughts will stay, and focus on him, the one who died, he'll bless you all the way. Have you ever yawned and dozed and slept right through the preacher's talk? And when his voice hit climax, it woke you with a shock. Looking up and down and around, you scanned the pews to see if anyone else saw the electricity. Listen to the sermon because the answer's in the words. Most of it applies to you, and you would wish you had heard. You may think it's crazy, or at least way out of sight, but it proves to you without a doubt that Jesus is the light. You ever remember any of this kind of stuff, Jay?
I mean, unfortunately, yes.
Definitely plenty of boring sermons.
Yep.
Definitely plenty of like, I feel like a lot of youth group was centered around, we come here on these Wednesday nights, or we come here for this summer camp, or we come here for this spring break camp, or whatever it was, because we lose sight of God out there. We lose sight of Jesus, and we got to refocus our vision on him. So my answer to all these questions is yes. I would say a lot of people, most people who take Christianity more seriously than just some cultural thing that they do, who think of it as a relationship with God who created the universe, I would dare to say that probably all these people have struggled with feelings like, God just isn't there. or that they find that they so easily get distracted, those kind of things. That's why we come to church every week. If we don't come to church every week, then we'll forget about it. And I'm going to pose a hypothesis here, Jay. The reason that you and I probably, and the narrator of this song, don't find sermons to mean much to you, the reason you find it impossible to feel like God is there at times, the reason you're so easily distracted from your walk in your day-to-day life, and the reasons that you have to remind yourself that God is there and it's good to love him and worship him and obey him is because God isn't there. The reason we don't sell everything we own and give it to the poor and follow Jesus is because deep down, we know he isn't there. We know that voluntary destitution in our society is a death sentence. Even though Jesus said that God will take care of us at all times, just like the bird doesn't fret for somewhere to live, which isn't true. He will take care of us, and we know that there's nothing to fall back on because God's not there. That's why Christian nationalists exist. They got tired of waiting for God to exist and have taken it upon themselves to sentence the dirty, unwashed sinners to hell on earth. They know that God doesn't provide, and that's why they've taken over the government to use it to provide for them. Jesus made radical demands of his followers. Sell everything you own, follow me. Turn the other cheek, walk an extra mile. But no Christian takes this seriously. Taking it seriously would mean actually having faith in God to provide for you when you sell everything you own. Turning the other cheek would mean having faith in God that even if you're killed or overrun, it doesn't matter. But in the end, there's no Christians. There's not one Christian out there. Nobody follows Jesus. Because they all know the same thing I know. God isn't there. And this is where I eventually came with my faith walk. I looked at myself. I looked around me. I found no faith, no actual faith in Jesus present in myself, in anyone I knew, in anyone I'd ever met, or really in anyone I'd ever heard of. The very, very few exceptions to that aren't long for this world, honestly, because Jesus called for some radical things. And they kind of fly in the face of survival a lot of times. And I realized after years and years of searching for God and trying to follow Jesus and trying to love God, that I didn't have faith because it wasn't something I was capable of. And I wasn't capable of it because it was so at odds with the life that I lived every day. I don't mean faith like selling everything I know and own and following Jesus. I mean faith like believing something for no reason. Because what do I know about a God who isn't there? Except other people tell me.
Yeah. I know the answer to this, but doesn't life feel a lot, easier now?
Yeah, less overwhelming, like when you just take it into your own hands. Less painful when you're not waiting for something that isn't there. More majestic when you realize that this isn't all just so that people can be judged on whether or not they go to hell or not. Yeah, life is infinitely better without a God in it. Yeah. You?
Yeah, this is connected, although not the exact same thought. I followed some people on, I'm never going to call it X, on Twitter that are dealing with a lot of the fallout from, we've talked about this on here before, from IHOP and Mike Bickle and some of the other Christian leaders that they followed who've turned out not to be who they thought in all this, and trying to I think they're still trying to deal with that and figure that out. And part of me sometimes wants to be like, hey, guess what? If you realize that none of this is true, it's a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah. The reason God didn't stop that guy, because he's not there.
Yeah. And also none of that other shit that they were telling you. Because there's a whole instance of like wanting to hang on to the teachings, but discount the person. It's like, if you just let it all go, it's like a hell of a lot easier. But I get you couldn't have told me that. Oh, yeah. Back in the day at a certain point either.
Right,
I understand. It's just you kind of have to come through it and realize like, oh.
Yeah. I'm not like all that stuff I just said. Those were painful years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, ugh. beginning with things like screaming at God because why the fuck aren't you here kind of thing, you know, to just losing your entire worldview.
Yeah.
Losing community.
Yeah. I think losing community is a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's not always by choice. I think some people want to kind of continue relationships with people, but it becomes kind of, it just happens because once you stop believing or questioning that, you kind of get cut off.
Yeah.
So,
or kind of as I framed it here, because I think it's true for me at least, like just admitted that I couldn't believe, you know, not that I didn't believe, not for lack of trying.
Right.
But just that in the end, like I just didn't see God and I didn't see faith anywhere.
Yeah. Losing
meaning. Ugh, that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
There is meaning to be found in the world, though, you guys. And that's a big one. I think, you know, a lot of people say, well, I don't want to not believe in Jesus because I don't want to lose my meaning, which is not intellectually honest, first off. But secondly, like, there is meaning. Like, you get to choose it.
Tons.
Yeah. You get to choose it to some extent. And that's kind of what Jesus did with the whole care for the poor thing, you know, like he made that meaning. You know, be like Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, last song we're going to do.
Where Do We Go? Song 10. Which spoiler alert, I thought was kind of just like a little bit more like a praise song. And then I don't know what the fuck happens like about halfway through this song.
That's why I chose this one.
Yeah, I'm glad you did because there's some couple parts I definitely want to make sure we highlight.
Somewhere, I think on their website, it's called Where Could We Go, not Where Do We Go.
Which is what they say in the song, right?
Yes, yeah. This reminds me of that one hardcore song from the Insiders. Remember that? Their first album?
Unfortunately, yeah. I don't know why any band ever thinks that's a good idea, but anyway.
I actually like that song from I think that's the best song on that Insiders album. And I kind of like and the reason this reminds me of that is not just because they're both bringing these hardcore elements to it, but because they use horns in a similar way, which we'll talk about as we go through the song here.
Okay.
So up to this point, I think it almost feels like first or second wave ska. Nice bass line, nice, almost kind of upbeat guitars there for real, you know, good horns. And now we're going to hit a turn. So obviously we went much harder, I think, than pop punk there. A little bit of hardcore influence. Obviously we're in a minor key also because like it feels a little bit darker. The harder parts feel a little harder. I do like. Did you hear kind of like I don't know if it was the bass there at the end or another horn kind of doing something in the background there, kind of just a little bit off from what everyone else was doing, but it's kind of nice there. But we're gonna hear more of that later. We got a verse coming up here into a chorus. The vocals are kind of like monotone, especially through the chorus.
Where could we go? What would we be if the love of God had never been given freely? My lips shall sing, my voice shall be heard, and everywhere let it be said. The Lord is good, the Lord is good, the Lord is good, the Lord is good, the Lord is good. The Lord is good, the Lord is good, the Lord is good.
It's our chorus there. The Lord is good over and over again.
I don't see myself liking this back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, oh yes, good praise song.
It is, yeah. We get another verse, honestly, that's very similar to that. I think I want to start here kind of at the second chorus. They do something a little bit different here, or I think they ended a little bit differently here in the second chorus.
The Lord is good. 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 The Lord is good.
It's these horns right here. They're going for there. I'm not sure. They pull it off.
The like what? Somebody should have cut that out. Like, producer, you got to step up sometimes. Like,
but find it, or just find a better vocalist for it. I don't know. It wasn't coming off well.
I even wrote in my notes like, oh, weird little fade down into a different part, and then I wrote, why don't we appreciate? Oh God, is this about to get hardcore? And
yeah.
Here we go.
Here we go. You ready? This is where we get our other attempt at Supertones-esque lyrics, or vocals, I think.
Yes.
What do we appreciate?
His vocals aren't strong enough to dropping the horns out was a mistake because his vocals aren't strong enough to carry that.
I don't want to say that a band has to always sound the same, and I don't mind when a band like has a slower song or a different song or whatever, but it needs to sort of be in the same general area, right? Same general genre-ish. When bands start doing like, this is our hardcore song, this is our whatever song, then it's just like hard for me to take them seriously.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't good, but I enjoyed it.
I mean, I'm glad we're talking about it because it made me laugh, but yeah, I would not call it good.
This also should have been, I think it should have been the last song on the album. Or at least the other last song on the album should have been moved. I don't know.
Okay, right.
All right, Jay, read these lyrics.
Where could we go? What would we be if the love of God had never been given freely? My lips shall sing, my voice shall be heard, and everywhere let it be said. And then the chorus was, the Lord is good. Who'd we become when we know him? Would I be given the chance on a Christian's whim? He'll let us know, he will reveal, even eyes closed, they will have to kneel. And then, why don't we appreciate? And here's that last part that was kind of wrapped. He gave us the chance to live eternal life. We took it, we used it, we abused it, we never shared the light, didn't and still don't understand what has been given. Gonna make my friends aware of the era in which they're living, help them through their day, help them to see the way. I'm gonna hit the beaches with the gospel. With grace, it's D-Day, chosen for a holy mission to carry the jihad, allowing my friends to enter heaven, appreciating my God.
Yep. Oh, by the way, in case anyone was questioning my assertion earlier that the two things God demands is obedience and worship, what are the two action items in that whole thing right there?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what, every knee will bend, and something about telling their friends they're doing things wrong.
Yep.
Here's the two questions being asked here, okay? Number one, at least this is what I take from it. Tell me if you disagree. Number one, what would become of us if we weren't so lucky to be born into a culture or family that follows Christianity? Number two, why aren't those of us who were born into Christianity, why don't we take it more seriously?
Okay.
I think number two we already addressed in the previous song. So, question number one, I love. What would become of us if we weren't so lucky to be born into a Christian culture or family? Where would you be? Well, one possibility is that you might be born into a family of another religion. And then I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that you would probably be equally devoted to that religion and be asking a similar question about how you got so lucky as to be born into that family and culture with the right religion, and you'd be wondering where you would be if you hadn't been born there. Another possibility is that you might have been born into a family or culture that wasn't part of any religion. And then, maybe, just maybe, you would have been raised learning about other mythologies and religions of other people. You'd see the similarities between them and the unique things about each of them, and you'd see them in the larger picture of the history of mankind, and you'd know how they evolved in their cultures and their surroundings and changed, and you'd realize that all religions are just human inventions. Or maybe you'd be born in a time and place where you didn't even know that there were other religions or different cultures at all, and all you knew is what was around you. And you'd never wonder what it would be like to not be born into your culture because that isn't even something that you'd be capable of conceiving. Or maybe, and I really love this one, maybe you'd be born into a different culture where whatever particular traits that it is about you that make you a good Christian person are seen as evil, as sin. And maybe you'd be oppressed for being who you are just because you weren't born into a culture that values your personal characteristics. Not for anything you've chosen to be or anything you've done, just because you're you. And you'd wonder why life is so unfair and why God hates you for being you. Maybe you wouldn't be able to live with it, all that grief and shame. That's my take on the song.
Okay. I like it.
But I remember being there. I remember wondering, how did I get so lucky to be born into the only true religion? I'm so lucky that I would be born into a family that already believes the true religion.
Right.
Which is myopic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone who's born in something like that thinks that. All right. Anything else about that song?
No.
All right. You want to talk about the cover?
I mean, it's fine.
That's what I wrote too. It's fine.
It's very of the time.
Yeah.
I personally, I don't hate their kind of the way Freeto Boat's written. I don't love it. I could do without the stripes on the side because that gives away late 90s, kind of thing. But
it also looks like a bowling shirt from the late 90s.
Oh, okay. I get it now. I didn't get that's what they were trying to do.
The name of the album is kind of just stuck on there. Hindsight 2020, which is a bad name for an album also. It's entirely generic.
Yeah.
There's not really much other album art. The inside is just, it's a one-fold kind of thing. There's just lyrics and credits inside of it. And the back of it says Freeto Boat on someone's
belt.
Yeah. I didn't read their thank yous, did you?
Yeah, there's not anything like...
Okay.
They think some other basically Betty Rocket bands, and then Jesus, and then a bunch of names, but nothing like super interesting.
Okay. And that's kind of it. The back of the CD, honestly, is kind of done. It is nicely done in the same style as the cover of the CD, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So there is like an overall theme to it, even though it exists across 2 or 3 pages. But yeah, I think it gets the point across that it is from the late 90s, and other than that, it doesn't do much for me.
Yeah.
Jay, give the lyrics a rating, 1 to 10.
1.
rough. Jeez.
I don't know. Maybe have we had? I mean, where do they rank in all-time bad lyrics for the show? What do you think? They're up there.
As far
Top
as like
10 for sure.
poorly written lyrics, they're some of the worst.
Yeah.
They're not the worst, like, content-wise. Because I think they are heartfelt and truthful. And they're not overly preachy.
Okay.
Because I think everything that is preachy is also couched in self-reflection of some sort. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, they're 16 and 17.
Yeah.
They're trying.
Yeah. I think the songwriting is actually pretty good for their age. They got choruses, verses, bridges, instrumentals. That's more than pop punk has at this point.
And this is their first band.
Yeah.
Probably should waited a little longer to make an album or to record an album. I listened to their second one just briefly.
Okay.
Just to get a sense. And it's not really ska. In fact, they've dropped the horns, I think, for the most part.
Yes.
I thought it was better. Just a little bit I heard. So just probably need a little more maturity. You got any Where Are They Now?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, they went on a full US tour for this album. But after that tour, a lot of the people wanted to head off to college. I think, like I said, they're about the same age as us. So the band slimmed down to a 5-piece pop punk act and put out another album on Betty Rocket. And after that album, I think 2 more of the people. After that album, they were trying to become more serious, I should say. And they were going to change their name because Freeto Boat's a pretty bad name. And they were going to change their name to Call of Elijah.
Now, I'm going to be honest. I think Freeto Boat is better than Call of Elijah.
Maybe
but
so.
Hey.
But it's also silly, which doesn't work with the direction they were headed in. Kind of that more serious pop punk, emo adjacent kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think two of the members, I think the lead singer and the other guitarist, the one who isn't Mike, that we were getting a lot of this information from, I think both of them wanted to go off to college. And so the band disbanded. But then several of the people still wanted to keep playing. And so Mike Hope, the drummer, Mike Wright, the guitarist, and Corey Lindstrom, the bassist, were joined by the guitarist, Casey Lindstrom, from the demo. I think he'd gone off and maybe been in another band, but I can't figure out what that band was. I think he comes back and joins them, is now a 4-piece, and they form a band called Fighting Jacks. They played locally a lot and then the region a lot, put out a couple demos, and eventually Billy Power comes to court them for Tooth and Nail. Things look promising. But right about the time they're signing with the label is when that whole blow-up happens at Tooth and Nail, and Billy leaves, and a bunch of other people leave, and they said they kind of just got lost in the shuffle of it all, and they really didn't get to do much on Tooth and Nail, so not much happened with them there. And then Mike Wright is now in a band called Ironside.
Cool.
That's what I know.
All right. What's your award, Clifton?
This is going to be my Thanks for the Memories award, but not for the songs, just Thanks for Bringing Up Memories award.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clifton, what are we doing next time?
We're going to cover a band that I've never heard, but have often been curious about. Hocus Pic's album, Brothers from Different Mothers, from 1994?
Yeah, and I think we'll know for sure when we do it because I'll be more prepared, but I think Hocus Pic was a Canadian band, actually. Ooh. So this could get
syrupy.
Get a little interesting.
Yeah, they're on a label, Vision Artists. I haven't heard of that one, I don't think, that label.
Yeah. Well, this will be fun.
All right. This will satisfy my 30-year-old curiosity about who Hocus Pic is.
There we go.
Fun. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Your Music Saved Us.
If you enjoyed your time with us, please leave us a review or share this episode. Visit patreon.com/YMSU to contribute and get extended episodes. Visit our website, yourmusicsavedus.com, to find out all the ways to listen. We're on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Join our Facebook group or follow us to keep up with the latest or interact with us. And send complaints and disagreements to yourmusicsavedus@gmail.com.
The music in this episode is the work of Freeto Boat and is used with apologies, not permission. You can find their stuff to purchase on Bandcamp. You can even purchase physical copies, cassettes, or CDs. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, y'all.